Dajahal, hi guys, it's Shanae and welcome back to my channel, and today I am continuing my read-along for Disabled Tyrant's Beloved Pet Fish. I wanted to switch the words around because apparently I can't speak English and we have just started. That's great. Anyway, hi, I hope you're well. I am so sorry for only starting the live an hour later than usual, but we're only going to be doing 2 hours today because our neighbors, without informing me, they did inform my mom, but she forgot to tell me, decided that they were gonna drill for water right next to my bedroom window for 2 days straight. So that completely messed up my filming schedule, which means I'm still scrambling to get ahead again, which is great. Today I have read all the books and I really want to keep going back. I saw your comments earlier. I'm so sorry I haven't gotten a chance to reply to it yet, but I am so happy that you read the books and enjoyed them. Obviously, mindful spoilers, I have not yet finished the books. We're currently in volume 3, as I'm sure the title of the video says. But yeah, I hope you still enjoy the revisiting. Urha, volume 7, 8 gave me so much trauma. Oh, great. I still have to get to 8, which, by the way, might still be a while coming, because I realized today that the reason why my book was taking so long to get to me is because I never ordered it. Thanks, ADHD. So we hope it comes in time so that we're not having to wait between finishing this and starting volume 8. I promise I try and be organized. I just somehow fail at it. Hi! Okay. So, for anyone who's new here, hi, I'm Janae. I try and read anime. I'm apparently not a very good human at being organized, and yeah, we take a break on the hour, and usually we go for 3 hours, but tonight we're doing 2, so that I can just stretch my legs and get new tea and all of that. So, I think we can get going. I feel like I've spoken enough for people to have time to jump in if they wanted to jump in. I am terrible about waiting the 5 minutes. I feel like I should maybe do a pre-stream intro, but then it means always having to for you guys always having to skip past it if you are doing a rewatch of the stream, which I don't know if that would be convenient. But anyway, let's get started. For anyone who is following along with their own books, we are on page 227, Fishy Punishments, which I hope is less grim than it sounds, because I am relying on this book to be my escape to all the things in my life that suck. I make that sound worse than it is, honestly. Let's go. Leo was safe for now as long as he stayed in the river, but he couldn't just wait for Prince Jing to rescue him. If the bandits suddenly decided to deal with him, then it would be too late. At least now he knew Dabao and the others weren't in the bandits' hands. Plus, the bandits that caught him didn't know who he was, so they couldn't use him to threaten Prince Jing. Leo comforted himself with this silver lining, forcing himself to calm down a bit and consider the situation carefully. He naturally wanted to escape. Man-Mers had nimble legs and feet. What if he made a break for it while the bandits were distracted? As he was thinking, a bandit came over and Leo did his best to hide in the water. This is not gonna go well. You had one thing that you could not do, and that was be seen by other people, and you were this close to being seen by other people. I would have thought that this already would count as being seen by other people, but I guess because his secret is not yet exposed, it doesn't count. I don't know. When the bandit saw him, he swore a bit and reached for Leo. Leo didn't want to be caught, so he kicked out forcefully and managed to connect with the bandit's arm. The bandit, hit unexpectedly, became furious and drew out the sharp knife he was carrying. Great. Leo started to regret not bringing a weapon with him when he left. He'd been too worried about the chaos outside and didn't think he'd be caught by the bandits. And, as a man-mer, he couldn't hold anything anyway. I mean, that, I feel, is a stronger case than not thinking to bring something with you to begin with. It would be nice if he had his tail. He'd never wished for a tail so much. His legs were still a bit weaker than a tail, and though the scales on his upper body provided some protection, he wasn't sure if they'd be able to withstand a knife. And his short fins couldn't even reach far enough to slap people. As soon as he thought that, at this critical moment, his body changed again. He'd been a man-mer just now, but his lower body suddenly felt lighter, as if he had his flowing tail. Leo gently flicked it to confirm the feeling. His tail really was there. Before, he'd stayed one or the other for a whole day, but he didn't think that on the third day the mission would change up the rhythm like this. Again, does that not then count as him being seen? Because now he suddenly looks completely different than he was before. If the bandits just have eyes, which I'm assuming they do. Unless we're dealing with a blind bandit, which could be very much appreciated at this moment. But anyway. Hi, Cookie! Great timing, let's handle the bandits first. The bandits slashed at Leo, but Leo deftly hid in the water. When he couldn't catch him, the bandit rushed into the river angrily, and Leo hid his tail in a dark spot to trip him up, making the bandit fall into the water. Before he could get up, Leo lifted his tail up high and slapped it down on the bandit's forehead. The bandit didn't even have time to make a noise before he was knocked unconscious. Leo quickly dragged the unconscious bandit behind a rock. If another bandit came to check on him alone, he could deal with him. But if several came at once, he was just a single fish with a single tail, and probably wouldn't be able to handle all of them. What's more, his tail could knock a bandit unconscious, but he couldn't escape with it. His goal was still to escape. Wait, Leo had just thought about the advantages of legs when he realized his body had changed again. His tail had once more turned into legs. It was going to change that frequently? It sounds more like you might have a little bit of a control of it. Yeah, no, I'm just thinking about Avatar The Last Airbender. When Leo was calm, he was quite clever. He started to analyze all the times he transformed today. The first time he turned into a man-mer when he was impatient to run outside to see if it was Dabao crying. The second time he turned into a merman when the urge to beat up the bandits was strong. Just now he thought about running away with his legs and turned into a man-mer. So, could he transform at will on the last day? Then he really wanted to transform into a human. That's not gonna happen. You're never that lucky. Leo waited for a long time, but nothing changed. His fins were still short and stubby, unable to hold or grasp. It looked like he'd been wrong then. When he first started the mission, he tried turning into a human, but it didn't work. Since the fish scamming system had essentially banned the skill, it wouldn't just let him turn into a human so easily, right? If he couldn't turn completely into a human, then what about a fish? This time, it was just a casual thought, but his line of sight suddenly dropped and his height shrank. Whoa! It seemed like he couldn't just absently think about turning into a fish because he really would turn back into a fish. This fish form was still the original size too. Rio couldn't believe his luck. The cloth and the strips used to cover his body scattered and fell, and he escaped from them easily. Turning into fish was the best case scenario right now. Leo hid in the aquatic plants and coldly observed the bandits. There was no way the bandits would guess that their hostage had turned into fish and hidden in the water. I mean, it depends on if they saw anything beforehand, at which point they might start suspecting anything and everything being possible. Turning into a fish was the best case scenario right now. Oh, wait, sorry, I read that bit already. They'd only think that their hostage had somehow escaped. Bandits talked loudly among themselves for a bit, but they finally noticed that their comrade who'd gone to check on the hostage hadn't returned for some time. They made their way over, loud and cursing, only to see him lying in the river. The cloth and strips that had been wrapped around the hostage were all still there, but the hostage himself was gone. What happened? Where did the hostage go? An ill-tempered bandit pulled up the unconscious man and slapped him a few times. The bandit woke up, his eyes unfocused. He obviously hadn't seen a thing when he was knocked unconscious by Leah's tail. What are you just standing around for? Chase after him, someone shouted, and the bandits all rushed out to find the hostage. Leah held his breath and waited for a bit. One bandit, with his face covered, didn't leave with the rest. Instead, he walked to the riverbank and searched around, but didn't find anything. He didn't give up, though. He squatted and stuck his hand in the river. Leah tried to avoid his wandering hand and inadvertently got a look at it. There was a scar on the man's hand that looked a lot like an animal bite's. Like a fish bite? Or like our dear dog whose name I cannot not remember, but who sees Leah as his friend. That one? I feel like this should be immediately telling me, oh, it's this guy, but I have no idea. I have no clue. The man didn't find anything in the river. Just as he was about to stand up, a racket started coming from the run-down temple. The bandits who had run out before came running back, shouting in panic. "Tactician, it's not looking good. Prince Jing is on his way over." I wonder if the tactician is actually one of the other princes in Shafeng. Yes, oh dear Shafeng. I was gonna say I wonder if the tactician is one of our dear princes in disguise, but we'll see. So this was the tactician. Leo swung his tail excitedly. His Highness had come so quickly to save him. As soon as the bandits finished speaking, Prince Jing broke into the temple, covered in blood. Oh damn, I hope it's not his own. A bandit gritted his teeth and rushed forward with a knife, but was immediately cut down by Prince Jing's sword. Prince Jing had a murderous aura around him, and his eyes were terrifying. He cut anyone in his way, and very soon the bandits had all fallen. Only the tactician was left standing. He slowly raised his hand. Leo thought he was going to surrender, but without warning, and quick as a flash, he threw a smoke bomb. "Your Highness, watch out!" Leo was fearful. The smoke could render one unconscious. He'd suffered from it once before, and was afraid that Prince Jing would too. Luckily, Prince Jing reacted quickly and knocked the smoke bomb away with his sword. The tactician drew his sword and stepped forward to battle with Prince Jing. Prince Jing fought for a while, but he couldn't gain the upper hand, which made Leah anxious. Why had Prince Jing come to save him without any of his guards? He doesn't actually necessarily know that he's saving you. We'll see. I mean, I wouldn't put it past Prince Jing to know, but it like, The tactician parried Prince Jing's sword with his own, and when he got closer, threw a handful of white powder at him. This bastard, how shameless. Not more lime powder, I really hope not. Liu was so anxious that he wanted to turn into a man-mer and run into this disgraceful man to kill him. Oh! Prince Jing swayed a bit and lifted his hand to cover his eyes. He seemed to have fallen for the trick. The tactician coldly chuckled, knocking Prince Jing's sword aside, and then made a strange move to stab Prince Jing's calf. But although Prince Jing shouldn't have been able to see anything, in one fluid motion he dodged cleanly, swerved behind the tactician, pulled out a dagger from his sleeve, and stabbed it into the man's back. I am not the violent sword, but the man's neck might have been more useful. I'm just saying. Every move was accurate and merciless. The tactician's plot, the attempt to stab Prince Jing in the leg, and Prince Jing's dodge and counterattack all happened in a split second. You didn't. The tactician met Prince Jing's dark eyes and suddenly came to his senses. But before he could finish his sentence, Prince Jing twisted the dagger and sent him to meet his maker. Mm. Leah had transformed into a man mer again. He stood up from the river and rushed over like a cannonball to save his husband, only to find that Prince Jing was fine and had even killed the tactician already. Thank goodness, otherwise again you would be screwed. Prince Jing had noticed him, though. With his lips pursed, he strode over to him, getting faster with each step. Your Highness, Leo closed his eyes instinctively. He wasn't afraid of Prince Jing because he'd killed the bandits. He was afraid that Prince Jing was mad at him. Leo had impossibly left the secret residence. Prince Jing must have gone through a lot to find him. When he saw Prince Jing earlier, he noticed that Prince Jing's face was pale, the corners of his eyes were red, and he looked furious. Prince Jing had never hit him before, but Leo knew that he'd crossed the line this time. He still better not hit him, though. Leo knew he was in the wrong. He turned into a merman again to apologize. Your Highness, I'm sorry, but he wasn't used to standing on his tail and almost collapsed to the ground. None of his forms were what he wanted, and he felt a bit frustrated. Prince Jing reached a hand out to help him up, then hugged him despite everything. That is how you do it. That is much appreciated. Leah leaned on his shoulder, sniffling, and said apologetically, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have left. But he really hadn't been able to ignore the children's cries. He was a father now, and it was a father's instinct. Even if he knew logically that he should trust Prince Jing and that it was most likely a scheme by the bandits, he couldn't just let it go. Sometimes logic couldn't control emotions. At least he's self-aware. We appreciate that. Prince Jing and his 4 children were his weak spots. The kind he would go crazy for. The kind where he only realized how ridiculous he was being after his impulsiveness passed. But if he had to do it again, he would make the same decision. Your Highness, it was my fault. You can punish me. Domestic violence was no good, but Leah thought he deserved it. I don't like that sentence at all. But I don't think that's where it's going, so we will just let that go. Prince Jing shook his head, hugged him with reddened eyes, and shoved something into his hand. Leo looked at it. It was the charm Prince Jing had given him before. When the bandits kidnapped him, the charm had fallen to the ground, and Prince Jing found it. Leo gazed into Prince Jing's reddened eyes and lowered his own, embarrassed. Prince Jing looked at him, suddenly took his hand, and wrote on his palm, It's not your fault. It's mine. I was late. I mean, let's just call it even. No, Leo hurriedly waved his hands. Your Highness came in time to save me. It was my fault. It was my fault that I didn't come back sooner and made you worry. It was my fault. Prince Jing wrote. Your Highness, let's not fight, okay? Leo sniffled emotionally. Why didn't you come back? Same reason as you. Prince Jing's lips turned up in a small curve. Leo blinked and stared at him. After a moment, he understood. Was Prince Jing late because he also thought the bandits had captured Dabao and he had to go and deal with them. Your Highness, do you also lose control of your emotions and get carried away? Leah asked. Prince Jing nodded. Crap. We can't have both of them doing that. Like, that is a disaster waiting to happen. Usually, you need the one parent that is gonna stay calm while the other parent panics, and then vice versa. Leah thought to himself, then we really did make the same mistake. With Prince Jing's explanation, Leah felt a lot better. In the future, trust me, I'll take care of it. Prince Jing wrote. Leah smiled and nodded. Okay. Now there better not be someone who just happened to witness all of this. Prince Jing didn't mention that he'd run into the head of the bandits and had to fight to the death. The golden swaddle in the bandit's arms hadn't tricked him, but when he returned to the residence, he discovered that Xiaoyu was gone. When he found the child later, he realized that Xiaoyu had been knocked unconscious and kidnapped by the bandits. In that moment, he felt like he'd fallen into hell. Though he seemed calm, he started killing immediately. All the bandits who tormented Xiaoyu needed to die. I mean, the tyrant has to come from somewhere, right? He didn't know how much longer he would have gone on killing if he hadn't found Xiaoyu. Only when he saw Xiaoyu with his own eyes did the anger in his heart start to dissipate. He really could understand the feeling of losing control that Xiaoyu described. When they finished talking, Prince Jing took off his outer robe, wrapped it around Liu, covering his fishtail, and picked him up. Everything was ready. The guards waiting outside of the rundown temple were now allowed inside to deal with the rest of the bandits. Prince Jing had entered the temple alone, with the guards outside tasked with killing any bandits that escaped. While the guards were busy with their task, Leah and Prince Jing secretly returned to their original residence. Leah and Prince Jing had just begun to watch the manor from a distance when Wang Shi spotted. Okay, yeah, there's no mistake. It just reads a little bit weird. Prince Jing and intended to run over, but Prince Jing held out his hand to stop him while protecting Liu with his other hand. Wang Shi guessed that they were in the middle of something, so he knew better than to disturb them. In their room, Ye Shushu, who was so bored he almost started growing grass on his head, was playing with the children. He's like completely unaware of the disaster that was going on outside. Ye Jingyan let Sabao sit on his lap and Arbao and Sanbao lay on his back while they all made faces at Dabao. Ye Shizi had sworn to make the serious, chubby little child laugh out loud, but the other three children started laughing first. Dabao thought human life was very difficult and that he would rather be a fish. Don't worry, Prince Jing held Leo's hand. Leo understood what he meant. Prince Jing wanted him to see that the children were fine. He nodded, signaling that he understood. After they watched the children for a bit, Prince Jing looked at Leo and raised his right hand. Was he finally going to be punished? Leo bit his lip and didn't dodge. Prince Jing's hand came down and patted his head softly. Your Highness? Leo looked at him, confused. With the punishment over, Prince Jing curled his lips into a smile. Now, they still had to overcome the tribulation. Why does this novel just make me so happy? Like, yeah, there is struggle. It's not like everything goes perfectly, but it's just, in comparison to something like Urha, where my heart gets ripped out, stomped on, and then placed back in my chest, it's not the same. Oh my goodness, Kictor! Thank you. Sorry, that surprised me so much. Oh, oh my word. Okay, sorry about that. Hi. Busted. Anyway, okay. Composure. Okay. Where were we? Thank you again. Very fishy business indeed. I love the fish buns. Okay, we are on to chapter 100, protecting the pet fish. Still, oh goodness. I don't know why I get so awkward when my friends watch my live streams. I'm sorry. Okay, let's keep going. Let's keep going. Leah wasn't actually sure how the mission was going. On one hand, the bandits came suddenly and he rushed out in the middle, not caring about anything else. He'd only barely covered himself up, so what would he have done if someone saw him? But at the time, he couldn't care less. On the other hand, there had been no notifications from the system. From his past experience, this meant the mission was still in progress and he probably hadn't failed yet. The system had told him before that if he failed the main mission, he would turn into fish bones and fish ash. Since he could still transform into a man and merman whenever he wanted and was fine, well, no news was good news, right? Prince Jing put the charm around Leah's neck again and guarded him for the next couple of hours. During this time, Leah clung to him like an octopus, determined that even if the Heavenly Emperor came knocking, he wouldn't be tricked again. Prince Jing had only punished him by petting his head, which made him even more embarrassed. If it hadn't been for him, Prince Jing would have been able to kill all the bandits in a jiffy. He wanted to make up for all the worry and burden he'd put on Prince Jing's shoulders. I mean, it's deserved. The Manmer, yes, I'm not over the Manmer thing, honestly. There was something I wanted to mention. What was it? We just had it. How many days is this tribulation again? Is it 3? I can't remember. I still need to watch the TGCF film, but would highly recommend. It's been like luring me over, waiting for me to watch it. Mama will be the death of me, and there is Leah's obsession with the merman. I mean, I'm definitely will. I have kind of been a little bit overwhelmed recently, which sucks, because I don't know, TGCF is one of those that I always try and prioritize, but I'm sorry if you have to give me the choice between a man-mer and a merman. I know what I'm choosing, and it's not the fish. I'm sorry. Um. Alright, Your Highness, don't forget to look into that tactician. Leah had heard a lot about the tactician from the bandits. Other than the fact that his face was always covered and his name was a mystery, the tactician also strategically used children and golden swaddles as bait, which was different from the bandits' usual recklessness. He felt that the tactician was probably targeting him and Prince Jing. It was well known at the western border that Prince Jing had just gotten 4 little gongzi and that golden swaddle was only for Dabao. Ordinary people wouldn't use such a color, and it was easy to find out this information if one was interested. The tactician must have asked around beforehand. Leah's suspicion was logical. Prince Jing had thought the same thing. The bandits had been almost completely wiped out in this fight, and the few that were left were the ones who hadn't ventured out. Prince Jing ordered his guards to torture and interrogate them to find out who the tactician was. The tactician felt eerily familiar. Considering the potential throwing of lime into Prince Jing's face, I feel like he has a connection to one of the previous incidents, but I can't remember if we dealt with the person relates to that previous line incident, or if this could have been the same person. Um, that's where I'm behind everything as well. I definitely will react to it soon. Um, uh, where were we? Oh, yes. Throwing white powder at him and then attacking his leg when he thought he was blinded seemed unnecessary, but in the past, Pinching had always kept a dagger hidden in his boots in case of emergencies. He'd brought a dagger this time as well, but he'd placed it in his sleeve during his killing rampage. It was this dagger that he ended up counter-attacking with. The tactician had attacked the spot where he usually kept the daggers. Was he trying to stop him from pulling it out? In any case, the tactician must have been somewhat familiar with him, otherwise he wouldn't have used a baby as bait. But how did he know where the dagger should have been hidden? Apart from this time, he'd only used a dagger in public once before, during an assassination attempt where his eyes was affected, after which he was saved by Xiaoyu. Thank you, I feel validated. It was precisely because of that experience that Prince Jing had become more careful when fighting in close quarters. He'd been able to avoid the smoke bomb in time and even pretended his eyes were injured. The tactician had used powder too, just like before. Since he also knew that Prince Jing had a habit of hiding daggers, Prince Jing had reason to believe that the tactician was the one who'd attacked him that night. It feels very satisfying when something makes sense. Your Highness, I saw by accident that the tactician had a scar that looked like an animal bite on his hand. It comes back, it all comes full circle. Leah had a piece of evidence. He didn't know if it would be useful, but he might as well say it since he remembered it. As soon as Leah mentioned it, Pinching immediately remembered that his attacker in the palace had kept covering his hands as if he were injured. Pinching wrote down the events of that day. Leah hadn't realized there were so many details behind Pinching's eye injury. Your Highness, are you thinking that the tactician is the same one who attacked you that day? Leah asked, mulling it over. Pinching nodded. On the western border, his only enemies were the bandits. The tactician had only come to the western border a short while ago and wasn't previously a bandit. That meant he must be from the capital. Leah thought about the scar on the man's hand and the other events of the day. Prince Jing's eyes were injured. It couldn't be just a coincidence, right? The way that he was fighting with Prince Jing, I also can't help but wonder if he had royal training. But maybe that's just me trying to make things fit so that it ends up being one of the other princes. Also, I just realized, or just remembered actually, Kekta is gonna be doing a reread, or actually first time reading. Correct me, I'm not sure, but of Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation. So if you guys are interested in that, I would highly recommend. I will be checking it out because everyone knows that Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation is where my love for MXTech started. So just wanted to mention that. I haven't heard about that. Which is that? Oh yes, Revenge Love. Not a fake deal. It's uncensored. Um, but it is silly at the start, and then becomes very bingeable. I read the book, but like it took a long time and was between watching the show and stuff, so I didn't have a good read through. Fair enough. I'm also excited for you to read it. You're reading it for the first time with character? Oh my goodness, you must enjoy it so much. I hope like we will all live vicariously through you and character, because I think everyone with MXTX's works, you just want to go back and relive it again for the first time, whichever one it is. Okay, sorry, sidetracking here way too much. Oh my goodness. Okay. Um Your Highness, remember the day Xiaofeng and I encountered a masked man? The one that tried to poison the fish food. Xiaofeng bit him on the hand. When Liu mentioned Xiaofeng, Prince Jing visibly paused before he realized that Liu was talking about his experience as a fish, and that Xiaofeng was Ye Qingyan's dog. Hearing Xiaoyu suddenly call out another name so familiarly had made Prince Jing a little uncomfortable, but he soon managed to turn his attention back to business. The person that poisoned the food had been bitten by Ye Qingyan's dog, and the tactician had a scar from an animal bite on his hand. It matched. Here we go. The tactician was from the capital and had run into both of them long ago, as the same person who poisoned the fish food and then turned around to attack him. Is it the second prince? Leah asked cautiously. When the masked man poisoned the fish food, the second prince had been plotting against the house of Chang'an and had asked someone to buy arsenic. Prince Jing and Wang Gonggong had thus concluded that the poisoner was sent by the second prince who wanted to vent his anger. Back then, the second prince had been under the most suspicion, but the situation was different now. After Prince Jing had dealt with him, the second prince was left confused and mentally broken. How could a person who was out of running for such a long time still have an accomplice? And for it to be the same masked poisoner? It didn't make sense. Prince Jing had someone in the second prince's residence keeping an eye on him, and he knew exactly what state Mutian Zhao was in, so it couldn't be him. That only left one possibility they hadn't thought of before, that the poisoner had never been sent by the second prince in the first place, and the second prince had only taken the blame for the event. If it wasn't the second prince, it could only be the third or sixth. In the past, Prince Jing might have suspected the third prince, but right now it was hard for the third prince to even protect himself. The emperor had found out about someone passing messages between the western border and the capital under the third prince's name, and the third prince had suffered for it. Wasn't that quite similar to the way the second prince had been framed? Prince Jing thought for a while, and then wrote a 6 that bled through the paper. Xiaoyu had been right. Wu Tianxiao was his biggest enemy, and he'd been secretly plotting against him for so long. So it was him. Liu sighed lightly. Everything could be explained if the devious sixth prince was behind it. The tactician was loyal to the sixth prince. The sixth prince was the only person with time to come out to the west to do something like this. Before, the sixth prince had hidden behind the third prince, and before that it had been the second prince. If you made a move, nobody would think of it as of this unwanted invisible person. Now that the sixth prince got rid of the third prince and became the emperor's only adult prince in the capital, he was in the limelight at court, but he was also no longer hidden. He had no shield anymore. Now that he knew it was the sixth prince's doing, Prince Jing wasn't going to hold back. A month later, the people at Prince Jing's manor in the capital received a secret letter from Wang Gonggong. Oh, goodness. Sorry, let me just quickly take a sip. I feel like I have completely lost track of what is going on in the chat right now. We stand Wang Gonggong in this chat. I just have to emphasize he is the wingman, he is the best man, he is the one true love of the people who all ship Xiaoyu and Prince Jing, because he's in the trenches with us. Gotta lock in for some editing, so I'll chat later. Good luck! I hope it goes well. Your editing is always very tough, so good luck. Doubly so. There was only one line in the letter. Teach him a little lesson. Ooh, I kinda love that. They would have to find out who him was through other means. That was how secrets were kept in Prince Jing's manor. These people would follow Prince Jing through hell and high water, but they'd been bored guarding the huge manor. Now that they finally had an order from the master, they immediately flew into action. Soon afterward, Zheng Jing from the Ministry of Works reported to the emperor that the sixth prince had taken bribes while he was in charge of repairs for Zhongqie Palace and switched out quality materials for inferior ones. Mu Tianshao's expression twisted as he denied it, saying he was just following regulations. Zheng Jing, filled with righteous indignation, countered him and took out the original blueprints of it's Zhongqie. I think that's right. Zhongqie Palace. The Zhongqie Palace that the sixpence had renovated looked the same, but it was clear that the wood used didn't match the plans. Instead, second-grade wood had been used, even for the beams. The emperor was extremely shocked. He immediately ordered the removal of the beams from Zhongqie Palace for examination and called upon more than a dozen carpenters to inspect it. He was worried that someone might even be framing the sixpence, so he chose the carpenters himself. But the carpenters confirmed that the wood didn't match the original plans. I mean, that's actually kind of nice of the emperor to be like, we're going to be extra cautious, we're going to make sure no one is framing you, so that if something is wrong and it is your doing, all the blame will be placed squarely on your shoulders and it will be accurate. In actuality, it wasn't the first time the repairs had differed from the blueprints. It could be explained logically if need be, but unfortunately, the numbers the sixpence had reported to the emperor and the Ministry of Revenue were based on top quality wood. The accounts had one price and reality had another. So where had the difference disappeared to? Look, if you're gonna go ahead and do things that are super shady regarding Prince Jing, then maybe keep everything else on your side clean so that he doesn't have something to hold over you. Just a thought. The emperor must be so sad. No, like, can't my sons just get along? Unfortunately, at least from what history and dramas tells us, it wasn't uncommon for them to not get along. But they might be embellishing, we don't know. As the supervisor of the project, the sixpence had to have seen what wood was being used. That was part of his responsibility. He simply had no leg to stand on. That's kind of like Xiaoyu when he's in his merman phase. He'd just gotten married a month ago. Normally, a prince's wedding was held by the Ministry of Rights. The only exception was Prince Jing, who was on the western border and had the emperor's permission to hold his own wedding. All the other princes' weddings were carried out by the Ministry of Rights, and they were all quite similar. But it was said that the sixth prince had given his fiancée, Marquis de Dingbei's daughter, quite a few more gifts than usual, which was all added to her dowry and carried to the sixth prince's manor. are keeping. They love to show off and had already made a ruckus about the gifts from his future son-in-law, the prince. Anyone with eyes could see these gifts were the six princes. Gold and silver, jewelry were considered inconspicuous among the pearls, agates, coral, jade, and ivory, which all came in boxes of two or more. There were countless ancient books and paintings as well, even though the sixth prince had claimed that he couldn't even prepare a decent gift for the emperor's birthday. Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah, that's not good. That is not good. Um, and that was the problem. How could the sixth prince get his hands on so much money within a single year? With the prince's status and salary, he definitely wouldn't be able to afford all this. The sixth prince's mother was a palace maid, and her family was poor. That was why he'd always been so poor in the past. Either he'd lied to the emperor during his birthday, or the money came from dishonest means. Some court officials had suspected him before, but the sixth prince was the only adult prince by the emperor's side now, and his status had risen rapidly. So these officials weren't inclined to offend the possible future emperor. Even Zhongjing had to think twice before exposing him after he received the evidence that the sixth prince had accepted bribes. I mean, thank you for actually going through and doing your job. Zhongjing was extremely familiar with the sixth prince's job in the Ministry of Works. When he learned that the wood used for the renovation of Zhongqie Palace was different from the wood in the plans, and that the sixth prince had never mentioned such a thing, he knew something was fishy. It didn't take much thought to work out who benefited from this. Zhongjing ordered people to follow the servants of the sixth prince, and then remembered that when Zhongqie Palace was being renovated, the sixth prince had sent servants to pawn off some rosewood boxes. Zhongjing put in a lot of effort to retrieve them, only to find that they were heirlooms from the imperial merchant who was in charge of wood. That showed where the sixth prince's money was coming from. Zhongjing presented the pawned tickets and the pawned heirlooms as evidence. The emperor interrogated the sixth prince, and the sixth prince insisted that his confidant had done it behind his back. He said his confidant had taken the money for himself, deceived him while he was in charge of the project, and substituted the good wood with the bad. The sixth prince didn't suspect him because he trusted him. All in all, he managed to push the blame onto someone else completely. I mean, we still have 2 volumes left, so I guess it's not surprising. Well, 1.5. But I guess it's not surprising that things aren't just magically going to be wrapped up already. The emperor's expression remained icy cold as he stared at the sixth prince. The sixth prince felt like he had nowhere to hide under the emperor's piercing gaze, but he could only grit his teeth and continue his innocent act. The emperor finally accepted the sixth prince's explanation, but because of this, everyone around the sixth prince was replaced. That was another story, though. Leo was finally at the last stage of protecting the pet fish. The long-awaited system notification sounded, but instead of notifying him whether the mission was complete or not, it asked him to enter the system and check himself. It was a little different from how the fish scamming system usually worked, so Leo felt a bit anxious. He was sort of scared that he'd failed the mission. After making a brief explanation to Prince Jing, Leo entered the system at once. The main mission, postpartum care, was still lit up, and the protecting the pet fish step was followed by color-changing small squares that would determine the final outcome. So the step also required assessment. This mission was for the Tyrant to protect his pet fish. The system explained, if the transforming pet fish was found by others, then it would be a fail. I mean, that was such a subjective thing, weirdly enough. I covered myself, so they didn't see my real appearance, Leah replied. It shouldn't count as being discovered, right? It doesn't count, but there were two bandits who were killed by the Tyrant after they saw the user's merman form. The mission can't be classified as success or failure. It can only be reassessed based on the Tyrant's actions. I mean, he killed two people to keep pushing Leah's secrets. I feel like that's pretty high up there in terms of like caring for my pet fish. Right? I'm justifying too much. So dangerous. Leah breathed a sigh of relief. Thankfully, it didn't count as failure. He'd been assessed several times before, and Prince Jing always did great. There shouldn't be a problem this time either. Never say that. Leah stared intently at the small square that would indicate the results. Green meant success, red meant failure. He remembered that the square had turned a rainbow color once. That would what would it be this time? The little square changed color faster and faster until it suddenly stopped. It was yellow. This was an unexpected color. Thinking about what he and Prince Jing had done during the mission, Leah couldn't help but complain. Did the system think he and Prince Jing were too horny? I don't. If the options are like, is it gonna turn green or is it gonna turn red and it turns yellow, I'm taking that as like, I'm in a danger zone. I'm not taking it as, oh, I was too lustful? Like, where's your brain at? Clearly, you are too lustful. I think. Okay, so we're at the end of a chapter. We are 8 minutes to the hour, so I think it's smart to take the 10-minute break now, be back at like 12, not 12 past, 2 past ish, and then we continue for the last hour to finish up. So I shall see you guys then. Okay, we are back. I think the audio should be good. I hope so, at least. Okay. I have tea once more, and we're gonna try and brace ourselves for whatever this holds, because I feel like things are gonna get better and then get worse again. Chapter 101. Fish calling his name. Oh goodness. If anyone has ever watched A Fish Called Wanda, that is where my brain just went. Um, which is not good. I mean, I love it, but it's yeah. Anyway, we are on page 247 for anyone interested in following along with their own books. Leo's shenanigans never end. Never, never, never. Okay. The system could hear Leo's thoughts and was rendered speechless for a moment because of the user's derailment. Yellow means a partial pass. Thank you. That makes so much more sense than whatever Leo was thinking. The system corrected him. Otherwise, the user might imagine some strange things on his own. Huh? The Tyrant used excessive violence, but it was to save the pet fish. Since the system cannot deny the Tyrant's protection of the pet fish, that is the result of the assessment. It was as if this was a test. Prince Jing had answered well at first, but accidentally spilled ink on the paper. Leah had expected that the system would balance the pros and cons, but instead, to his surprise, the system simply disregarded the part of the paper with ink on it and just graded what was left. That makes sense. Prince Jing was actually the one who made the system, wasn't he? Why was the system always giving him a pass? But thankfully, a partial pass was still a pass. Yes, that's true, the system agreed. However, the reward will also be affected, and you can only receive part of it. User, please accept the reward. Protecting the pet fish was the last step of the postpartum care. The system tried to keep him guessing by having the reward appear as a large mystery box. I'm assuming and hoping for Leah's sake that it's like, okay, you get to be human, but it's not for it's not permanently the way you want it. It's like 8 hours, which is basically a work day. So you're more or less good. Leah had been assuming he would be able to turn into a human now, but the reward seemed different from what he had imagined. What could a partial reward be? Could it be that he would turn back into half human, half fish? Then he might as well continue being a fish. The system comforted him, saying, "Please relax, user." Leo accepted the reward cautiously, expecting to be scanned. A dazzling white light enveloped him. When it dissipated, 2 new scales appeared next to the jade scale that allowed him to transform into a human. Leo glanced at the description. The 2 new skills were turn into a man-mer and turn into a merman. Wait. He paid special attention to the duration of all his skills. The duration had also changed. It was now 24 hours, whole day. It could be used once a day and could also be cancelled. The addition of the 2 new skills meant that the system had given him the ability to transform into different forms. He could transform as he needed, and even though he hadn't turned fully back into a human, transforming once a day for an entire day was basically the same as being fully human again, as long as there wasn't any accident. Now you've jinxed it. As for the other forms, he could turn into a fish to avoid danger, and since the man-mer and merman forms wouldn't be used daily, he could have fun with them in the privacy of his room. A merman was a different type of flavor after all, and he wanted to try it out again. Leo thought that these new skills were somewhat similar to the way he'd continuously changed forms on the 3rd day of the protecting the pet fish mission. During the mission, though, he changed forms too easily, and he'd almost lost control of it. The new skills required him to choose to press the jade scales to use them, which was much more reliable than changing at will. Plus, the jade scales could only be used if Leah was the one to press them. Even though Prince Jin could see them, the skills wouldn't be triggered if he did it. To anyone else, it was basically a tattoo. On the one hand, I appreciate the caveats on things because it could keep him safe, but it could also cause him danger. So I am still wary. Mm. Two new skills and a change to the duration of the transformation were the first part of the mystery box of rewards. Oh, there's more? The mystery box had a second set of rewards, represented by the cute fish-shaped symbol. After he collected the first batch of rewards, he found that other than the main quest and side quest categories, there was another fish children status that had appeared. What's this for? Does it have to do with Daba and the others? Leah asked curiously. Though the children were considered part of Leah's team after they hatched, Leah hadn't expected any benefits of being on a team. The children were just a few simple fish-shaped symbols, and Leah suspected these were just decorations. Since there was now a fish children status, the system asked him. Sorry, let's try that again. Since there was now a fish children status, the system asked him to check it out. When it expanded, there were 4 fish children symbols. Leah thought about it for a moment, then pressed the golden symbol that represented Dabao. A transportation box popped up. Not a transportation, a transparent box popped up, showing Dabao sleeping as Wang Gong placed a small blanket on him. Oh, that's cute. Was this? Leah's little heart pounded, and he happily clicked on Sabao. The fish babies were usually doing the same thing at the same time. Since Dabao was sleeping, so was Sabao. But Sabao was sleeping on Ye Qingyan's stomach, with Erbao and Sanbao next to him. The 3 children and Ye Qingyan were fast asleep. That's so cute. Why does that feel like deja vu though? Sabal was soundly sleeping, his mouth opening and closing repeatedly. He probably still thought he was a fish and was imagining blowing bubbles. Leah checked on the fish children one by one. He couldn't look away. The system took some time to explain. The user can check the current status of the young fish here. It only works with the ones on your team and can be used up to 3 times a day for each young fish. Leah's eyes lit up with excitement. Wasn't this the fish scanning system's version of a baby monitor? One where you could see the fish babies would have been greatly convenient when we thought the children were kidnapped, but of course that would have been too easy. He'd fallen into the bandits' trap because he couldn't ascertain the children's safety and acted impulsively. In the end, it was because communication in ancient times was inconvenient. Really, the best you could do was shout. If it could be like the modern world he came from, with well-developed communication tools like a phone, where one could make a quick phone call to see if the children were safe, how could these criminals have taken advantage of him? I mean, that is fair. That is one thing I will definitely give him. I love how the Bao is like Junior Prince Jing and Sabao is like Baby Leah. It very much gives that vibe, yeah. Mm. Though the system hadn't rewarded him with a phone, it gave him the opportunity to see his children whenever he wanted to. Even if there were only 3 chances a day for each child, It was the best reward for a fish father who often worried about his children. Many thanks, system. I love how genuinely he's happy about that though. From the bottom of his heart, Leo was grateful. However, the system had more to say. User, postpartum care is only physically complete. This was supposed to be the last of the main mission, but since it was only partially completed, the requirement for closing out the main line have not been met. After the system's assessment, a new main line of missions will be added to make up for it. The rewards that the user was not able to obtain can also be obtained after completing the new main missions. He really wanted to take back his thanks. I mean, it means you still get to be human permanently if you complete the thing, right? He thought he would be able to become human after completing these missions and could finally escape the system. But he still had to complete more pet system missions. I forgot that's what it's called. Oh my goodness. No matter what form you're in, the user is the user. This will definitely be the last main quest line. After completing these missions, there will be no more. The user can choose a side mission to complete as required, and failing the side mission will have no negative consequences. Okay, that sounded pretty good actually. Leo wanted to be rid of the system because he didn't want to complete missions all the time and worry about failing them. If he could just do missions at his leisure in the future, then it didn't really matter if the system was there or not. Besides, he'd gotten used to the system talking to him and giving him weird power-ups. Since there are still main missions, you should hurry up and assess, said Leo mischievously. Don't get in the way of me completing missions and receiving rewards. The system seemed bemused. Oh, and one more thing, Leo asked, stammering a little. Can the system see Prince Jing and I when we... That wasn't even something I had thought to be paranoid about until now. When Leo was thinking clearly, he was actually pretty smart. Even if his reaction time was a little slow, he was only just considering this issue. There was no privacy with the system. The system was just a system. Leo wasn't worried about it being awkward, but he was worried about Prince Jing's secrets being stored in the system. Would they end up being turned into viral videos? So, was he watching, or watching? Oh goodness, I feel like we're overthinking this now. I just put my hand in my tea. That was not smart. Um, Hold on. We are, sorry, I am saying this for my own sake in case the book closes by accident, because I can only handle it with one hand at the moment. We're on page 250. Okay, there we go. Crisis averted. Okay. I was wrong. We were on page, we'd finished page 251 already, so we're at the top of page 252. The system had nothing to say. The extremely ridiculous user was kicked out. Leo woke up in a great mood. He had lost consciousness every time he entered the system, and this time he'd entered as a merman. When he came to, he was sitting in Prince Jing's arms, carefully protected. The merman form's tail was easily dehydrated, so he impatiently turned back into a human. But his timing was a bit off. Originally, his tail had been cutely wrapped around Prince Jing, but when it turned into legs, it was in a weird position that made his imagination run wild. Of course it did, because Leah just has no chill at all. Um, Leo blushed and lowered his legs from around Prince Jing's waist. Then he looked up to meet Prince Jing's eyes. Prince Jing smiled and touched Leah's face. What's wrong? Leah hugged him and nuzzled up to him, unable to control his happiness. Your Highness, I have good news for you. The duration for my human form has been extended, and after one more tribulation, I can return. Ah, it suddenly occurred to him that this explanation wasn't quite right. No matter what progress he'd made with the missions, he was still just a carp spirit to Prince Jing. A carp spirit would want to turn into a human completely, not return to human form. He couldn't get that wrong. Leah paused and tried again. Next time, if I pass through the next tribulation, I'll be human forever. Prince Jing smiled slightly and nodded. All right, I'll protect you during the next tribulation too. I really like Prince Jing, despite all his murderous tendencies. Leo couldn't help but smile. I'm so lucky you're here, Your Highness, he said, and let out a heartfelt sigh. It was all right even if he had to do one more round of missions. His missions would be completed one day, but he didn't know where he'd be now if not for Prince Jing. Leo scooted closer and pulled Prince Jing in. The atmosphere was just right, and the fish was about to kiss him. He exaggeratedly pouted his lips out and kissed Prince Jing's cheek. It was a kiss as light as feather, making one's heart ripple like water. Prince Jing raised his eyebrows, his lips moving. Do you want to say something, Your Highness? Leah asked. He noticed that Prince Jing's expression was a little different. Prince Jing glanced at him quickly and hesitantly took out a note. He made a random guess, but there really was something. Leah took the note. He was curious about what Prince Jing wrote, but he only saw Prince Jing's name. Tianchi on it. He wants him to call him by his name. Oh no, that's gonna be so cute though. Okay. I know your name, Your Highness. You know, I know the book keeps telling us that Lee is smart. We've seen him be smart, but sometimes he forgets that he is indeed smart. Why did His Highness want him to see this? Seeing that he still didn't understand, Prince Jing took Leah's reddened lips into his and bit down softly when he said, Your Highness. Oh my word. Leah, confused as he was teased, said again, Your Highness. Prince Jing sidled up to him before he finished speaking, and Leah got bitten again. Your Prince Jing hugged him and bit once more. Leah didn't dare speak anymore and blinked. Was he not allowed to say Your Highness? He was going to be kissed every time he did. Prince Jing, seeing that he was starting to understand, handed him the note with his name on it again. Leah suddenly got it. You're... you, no, are you asking me to call you by your name? Prince Jing nodded seriously. He finally got it right. Tears sprang to Leah's eyes. Prince Jing wanted him to call him by his name. This was perfectly normal, since they were married now. It seemed a bit distant to call him Your Highness all the time. Prince Jing didn't want him to be distant. Then, Tianchi, Leah smiled shyly. Prince Jing's name was quite tasteful, so he couldn't help saying it again after the first time. Tianchi. I can't deal, okay. Prince Jing responded, a smile spread across his face, and he held Leah's hand. It was such a small thing. Why not write it out? Because he wanted Xiaoye to realize it himself. He didn't want to ask for it. If he could say Xiaofeng's name so easily, then why not his too? This man was really jealous over a frickin' dog. Like fish like Erna, I guess. But also, I just found it hilarious because I know that Tianchi doesn't have anything to do with like heaven and eating, which is like where my brain went because that's the only two Tian and Chi that I know. But it's I just found it so funny that he was like, oh, it's so tasteful, and all I'm thinking about is like Chi, like food, or eats. that does not that is not what he means, but that is where my brain went. Okay, sorry. Anyway, chapter 102. Fish babies write a letter. Oh goodness, this is. They might just pen a letter of complaint at this point. The last line of main missions still hadn't been revealed yet, so Liu didn't have any tasks he had to run around completing. Prince Jing's manor was managed well by Wang Shi, and he didn't have much to do as a consort. He just had to endure the children every day. Not endure, educate. My word, I'm sorry, I'm starting to not be able to read words apparently. He just had to educate the children every day and give Prince Jing some ideas from time to time. From this angle, life was still the way he liked it and hadn't changed just because he'd become a consort. This was the kind of life he always wanted, and it was also a result of Prince Jing's doting. Prince Jing did whatever he asked. Mm, Chuan Jude roast duck restaurant was opened for him simply because he said he wanted to eat it. Now it had become a famous delicacy known far and wide, and even the Duke of Chang'an's son from the capital praised it wholeheartedly. The days passed quickly. With Prince Jing's hard work, the locusts, which were major threats on the western border, had been eradicated, and another major threat, the bandits, were too dead or injured to cause any more trouble. I mean, that'll do it, I guess. Could you imagine? Um, the western border was now stable, and there was much less chaos near the border. In the blink of an eye, the little fish babies turned 100 days old. Prince Jing held a grand celebration for them, just like a wedding. There was a huge banquet, and numerous guests were invited. A lively scene. After 100 days, Ye Qingyan came to say goodbye. Ye Shizi had come to visit partially because the house of Chang'an wanted him to, and he'd asked the emperor especially for the time off. He'd helped Prince Jing a lot during the 100 days he'd been here, but since his wife was pregnant and the bandits Prince Jing was dealing with were now pretty much gone, it was time to leave. Before he left, Prince Jing had a deep talk with Yeshiza and told him that he wanted to write a letter of gratitude for him to bring back. Ye Qingyan had a good relationship with Prince Jing. He agreed readily. I have to say, I really like Ye Qingyan, and also poor thing, now he's, I guess, it depends on how you look at it, but at least now he's gotten a little bit of practice in with the four Jing kids before his own arrives. I feel like his own is gonna be a breeze in comparison because four kids is a lot to handle. Mm. When Prince Jing was writing the letter, Li and Wang Shi came to visit with two children each in their arms. The human shaped fish children had accepted reality and were living happily, except for Dabao, who still had his reservations. They ate and slept and pooped every day, The bow, who just wanted to grow up, felt himself going numb. No matter how unhappy he was, all he could do was cry. But if he cried too much, his fish dad would start to feed him milk again, and the bow hated drinking milk from the bottom of his heart. He missed the fragrant, sweet peach blossom pastries dearly. Unfortunately, he'd heard the wet nurse say that babies needed to drink milk for 6 months before they could eat other things. The boy used all his fingers and toes and still didn't manage to count 6 months, and he felt like the peach blossom pastries were getting farther and farther away. Oh my goodness, I love the bow. He didn't really get it, and he couldn't understand why his young brothers accepted it so readily, especially Sabal. That fish was never worried. Sabal was right next to Sabal at the moment, and Sabal, who was being held by their fish dad as well, was currently munching on his hands. Sabal admitted he sorry, Dabal admired him for that, and his baby instincts made him want to lift his own chubby fingers and shove them in his mouth. Oh no, Dabal told himself repeatedly, I am a responsible older fish brother and can't eat my hands like my younger brother is doing. But my mouth is itchy and I want to chew. Dabal, the most proper baby in the world, was holding himself back so much that he almost shed a tear. Poor thing. Sabal was enjoying munching away when he found Dabal looking at him. The naive Sabal smiled lazily and warmly at his older brother, smearing his drool all over Dabal's face, and went back to chewing on his fingies. I just freaking said fingies on live stream. It's not the worst thing I've read, but still. Dabal wanted to cry. Sabal's saliva was so gross, but why did he also want to do the same thing? Leah had been watching them secretly for a long time as he held them in his arms, and he couldn't hold back his laughter. When he saw Prince Jing writing the letter, he had an idea. Dabal, Erval, Sanbal, Sabal, why don't we write a letter to Grandpa too? Oh my goodness. The Emperor's gonna die of happiness, I swear. The fish babies didn't know what an emperor was yet. Leah always called the emperor Grandpa in front of them, because that's exactly who he was to them. The bar nodded quickly, excited. It had been such a long time since his fish dad called out to him for something other than nursing. Sabah was a bit confused and didn't know what writing a letter was. But he liked his fish dad, so he'd do whatever he wanted him to. He nodded along with Dabao. Tianchi, is that all right? Leah asked, tugging on Prince Jing's sleeve. Prince Jing loved hearing Xiaoyu call him by his name. He smiled and got out of his seat. Leah put the two babies on the table as the other babies in Wang Xi's arms cried and fussed, wanting to reunite with the other two. The children's small bodies wrinkled the high-quality rice paper placed on the table, but Prince Jing, the paper's owner, wasn't distressed by this at all. The children couldn't touch the ink next to the paper, but Prince Jing was astute. He'd had the kitchen mix together some dark, harmless juice for them to use. Leah, who had checked with the wet nurse beforehand, applied the juice on the baby's hands. He'd heard that the emperor would often ask after the children, so Leah thought that he might appreciate something the children made themselves. The emperor had also conferred titles onto all four of the children, so they already had salaries. Damn, can I be paid for just existing? That sounds amazing. Like, you are my favorite grandchildren. Here, have a salary for life. Mm, where are we? Oh, they should give thanks to the emperor for the fact that they'd never have to worry about money. There we go. Instead of pondering over what gift to send the children in the children's names, why not let them write a letter with their father? It was a nice idea. The children were placed together on the table and greeted each other with cries of "Ah!" Their hands were smeared with the ink and they were all seated on the paper. There was no need to tell them what to do. They all got started immediately. When Dabar was still a tiny, tiny fish, he'd seen a lot of words when he followed his father. Dabar thought about it and determined he could probably write the word da out. He started concentrating on writing. Erbao and Sanbao didn't know what they should do, but when they saw Dabar begin, they followed his example and started to write the same word. Right, by the way. Dabar stopped immediately. Ah, no, this was something that belonged only to Dabar. The younger brothers couldn't write it. Dabar used his hands and feet to write and Sun hurriedly, then pushed it to his younger brothers. Oh my goodness, this overachiever, I swear. I'm trying to think. I feel like out of all the characters for like for the four of them, Se is the most complicated, which is just unfair to poor Sabal. I mean, it's not that complicated, but it's still the most complicated. And I'm talking about simplified Chinese. Never mind the traditional ones. I don't even know what that looks like. Oh goodness. After a moment of contemplation, Erbao and Sanbao decided they didn't like it. They still thought their elder brother's Da looked nicer. Ah, we want older brothers. Erbao widened his eyes like little glass beads, and Sanbao reached out his chubby fingers. Their wails mingled together. Leo almost couldn't breathe from laughter. He turned Dabao, Erbao, and Sanbao away from each other so they could each do their own thing. What kind of proper letter could such tiny babies write? The most they could do was probably a handprint. Meanwhile, Sabal felt sleepy as soon as he saw the rice paper, and was now sleeping his face down on the paper with his butt in the air. Which one of them did this child resemble? I wonder. Must be a complete mystery. Yeah, no, it is the same name. Like I couldn't help noticing it, and I was like, am I wrong? Am I misremembering? But no. Mm. In the end, Dabao finally wrote the Da he remembered, and Erbao and Sanbao both left a handprint. Sabal was still sleepy and accidentally left half of his face for his grandpa because he got ink on his cheek. Leo carefully blew the children's letter dry, folded them, and handed it over to Prince Jing. The Emperor won't be angry, right? He asked, worried. Oh my goodness, we have art. It's so cute. It's so so cute. My goodness. Oh, look at it, guys. That's so so cute. I'm sorry, I'm not more coherent. Okay. Prince Jing smiled and shook his head. This fish. He was the one who came up with the idea, but he was also the one worrying about it afterward. Prince Jing put the children's letters with his letter of thanks in a large envelope and entrusted this huge responsibility to Ye Qingyan. This envelope reset Yechingyan's understanding of a letter. Prince Jing said it was a letter of gratitude. Why was it so thick? He'd always thought Prince Jing was cold and didn't care to please the emperor. Who knew he'd write so much? I mean, he's not quite wrong. He was obviously as talkative as Wang Gonggong. Never mind, I gave him too much credit. He's totally wrong. Leah prepared a gift for the princess of Jinju too and asked Ye Qingyan to give it to her. The princess was pregnant, but he and Prince Jing were far away in the west. Leah probably wouldn't be able to congratulate her in person when the child was born, so he wanted to send gifts to her and the child in advance. He had a craftsman melt the small golden bracelet Dabao and the others wore into a pretty lock charm. There was probably no lack of children's accessories at the house of Chang'an, but Leah had heard from Auntie Xie that things that children had worn were touched with good fortune. Since his 4 children were safe and healthy, combining the 4 bracelets together would give 4 times the fortune. To a pregnant woman, there was nothing more important than the safety of the mother and child. That is such a thoughtful gift, my goodness. Because I was wondering about the reasoning behind it, but even without the reasoning, I was like, that's sweet. It's like from my child or my children to yours. But with the reasoning added, it's just so sweet. Ye Qingyan accepted the gift on the princess's behalf, his eyes a little red. Thank you, cousin-in-law. He bowed with full respect. Ye Qingyan and the princess both knew Li, so they usually called him Li Gongzi or consort. The sudden cousin-in-law surprised him, and he realized that it meant Ye Qingyan recognized him as part of the family. Li responded happily. Prince Jing glanced at Ye Qingyan. This young cousin of his that he always looked at with slight disdain was finally a bit more pleasing to the eye. Ye Qingyan hurried back to the capital. When the emperor received news from Prince Jing, or more precisely when he received the letters that came with several more pages of rice paper that the children wrote, he was so excited that his hands started trembling. Prince Jing's children were only 100 days old. Were they able to write letters already? Curiosity piqued. The emperor unfolded the letters. Oh no, sir, I don't want you to expect too much. The first piece of paper had a crooked word that looked like away. The second and third pieces of paper had little handprints, and the fourth one. The emperor couldn't control the smile that rose to his lips. Wasn't this just a little baby's face? With a few drops of saliva too. He'd never met Prince Jing's children, but he could sense their vivid personalities through these papers. Lord Rusheng, what do you think this means? The emperor pulled out the first piece of paper again and showed it to Lord Rusheng. Oh no, trying to decode baby language. Lord Rusheng looked at it for a bit and shook his head. The emperor read Prince Jing's letter again. At the end, he mentioned that the 4 papers were written by the children. The emperor realized that the first piece of paper must have come from Prince Jing's eldest son, who he'd already named as heir. Lord Rusheng immediately said, Your Majesty, I do not know what the little shiza meant when you wrote the word, but in all my life so far, I've never seen a child start writing so young. The little shiza must definitely be well educated in the future. Lord Rusheng knew the emperor well, so he started praising Prince Jing's heir as soon as he opened his mouth. Of course, he wasn't permitted to casually speak about the royal grandson's future, lest he imply anything about anyone taking the throne from the emperor, but that was nothing wrong with saying he had to be well educated. This resounding flattery hit the emperor in the right spot, and he felt at peace as he admired the away. Oh my goodness. He stared at it for a long time. He even wanted to ask Lu Sheng to frame it and hang it in Tianjin Palace. I mean, sure, Lu Sheng can't imply who's gonna be the future heir, but the Emperor can clearly pick favorites already. Prince Jing's Shizi was so promising that it made the Emperor think of the seventh and eighth princes in the palace. The two princes were still studying in the imperial study room. The Emperor paid a visit himself to encourage them gently and give them a lot of homework, which included writing. An Emperor's son couldn't do worse than an Emperor's grandson, who wasn't even a year old yet, right? The little princess was suddenly burdened with homework and had no idea why. Not only was the Emperor pleasant and cheerful to the seventh and eighth princes, but he also decided to choose the two most excellent students from the Hanlin Academy as future teachers for Prince Jing's children. Prince Jing had originally chosen a couple of teachers from the capital, but they weren't going to be needed anymore. News of the Emperor's preparations made its way to the west. Leo was a bit speechless when he heard. It wasn't the Emperor doting on these little babies too much? I mean, you're the one who was encouraging it, kinda. Tianchi, what does the "away" that Dabao wrote mean? Leo couldn't help but quietly ask Prince Jing, why does the Emperor like it so much? Prince Jing shook his head. He didn't know either. When he heard his father talking, the Bao looked at his tender little hands and felt sorry for himself. Away, he'd clearly written Da for Da Bao. He's trying, okay, guys. He's trying. Okay, I hope we can still do a chapter. We only have 15 minutes left, but I feel like we might be able to. Depending on the length of the chapter, I guess. Chapter 103, Fish, Children, Kissy. Interesting. The word Dabao had written so carefully turned out to be wrong. Dabao was unhappy. Even the peach blossom pastries his fish dad put to the side while he was nursing didn't seem so fragrant anymore. Leo cared for the children very much, so he quickly realized Dabao was feeling off. He didn't know why, but usually spending time with his brothers helped him feel better when he was in a bad mood. Thus, Leo gathered the fish children in hopes that Erbao, Sanbao, and Sibao could make Dabao feel better. Erbao, Sanbao, and Sibao surrounded Dabao, who turned his chubby face away with tears in his eyes. His three brothers all had the same thought. Why is he unhappy? Even though they looked like babies, they were fish brothers who had been together for a long time and were very close to each other. Sabal remembered that when he felt sad, his fish dad would use his mouth to rub him, which made him very happy. Fish Daddy said this was a kissy, and that he should kiss the people he liked. Bless Sabal, he's so sweet. Very much like his dad. Mm. Sabal liked his fathers and his brothers, so he could give his brother a kissy to make him happy. I got it! Ah, Sabal yelled, making Erbao and Sanbao look over. Sabal gave them a demonstration, puckering his lips and smacking a kiss on Dabal's cheek. Dabal wasn't sure what had just happened, but Erbao and Sanbao understood. They puckered their lips as well and moved closer. Dabal was so terrified that his voice broke. Ah? What are you guys doing? Smooch, smooch. Save me! Paul was continuously baptized by the love of his fish brothers, and he couldn't hold it together anymore. Rebel and Sunbow were alright with just kissing him, But Sabal was the weird one. Not only did he kiss his older brother, he wanted his older brother to kiss him back. He'd keep kissing Dabao until he did. Dabao, who was kissed so much by Sabal that his face was covered with drool, couldn't bear it anymore and gave in. Isn't it just a kissy? I can do it too. Tabal's eyes were filled with tears and threatened to spill over. He hugged Sabal with his little arms and little legs and gave him a little kiss. Leah was watching the entire time. As expected of Sabal, Sabal was able to accomplish what Ye Qingyan couldn't. Poor Ye Qingyan just keeps catching strays. After this incident, Leah found that Dabao had become much livelier than before. In the past, he usually stayed alone. He was just a baby, but he was always straight-faced and didn't mingle with others. Now, whenever he saw the other children, his arms and legs would start dancing. Go, we're coming to kiss you, said Erbao and Sanbao and her happy Sabao. Dabao disdainfully shouted, "Ah, get away!" Oh no, so from the sounds of it, Leah is taking it as a good thing and Dabao is feeling traumatized. Oopsie. The boys were in chaos. Look, Tianchi, Leah said to Prince Jing, feeling accomplished. Children have to be together to be happy. The corner of Prince Jing's mouth twitched. From what he could see, Dabao wasn't happy. But he wasn't going to reveal that. The most important thing was to make Sha Yi happy. Mu Tianshao was impeached for accepting bribes. He never committed any of the crimes himself, though, and just like every other time, someone under him took the blame instead. The Emperor couldn't punish him directly, but had switched out all the people around him. That left a bad taste in his mouth. Damn, and I had just managed to forget about him for a few seconds. Wu Tianshao had acquired his current position by betraying the third prince, so he never trusted his subordinates too much. He had very, very few trustworthy confidants. On the positive side, it was hard for secrets to be leaked, but on the other hand, with this single decree from the emperor, he no longer had anyone he could actually utilize. Oh, that's kind of great. I shouldn't be optimistic yet, but that is definitely at least gonna complicate things for him, if not completely destroy things. And it was all just because he desperately wanted to win over the Marquis of Dingbei of the Ye family. The Marquis of Dingbei family, the Marquis of Dingbei's family and the House of Chang'an were both century-old families. The Marquis was extremely hard to please, and he rarely helped his relatives out or did favors for them. The only person he doted on was his daughter, so Mu Tianshao wanted to lock down the marriage. The Marquis of Dingbei and his daughter were true nobility and had a lot of experience, so Mu Tianshao couldn't win him over with a few pretty tricks. He had to take some risks to convince Marquis Dingbei to help him. His siphoning money from repairing Zhongqie Palace shouldn't have been discovered so easily. Once everything was built and painted over, nobody would take it apart to look at it. So when the wood merchant contacted him through his connections and wanted to do business with him, Mu Tianshao knew that his opportunity to make a fortune had arrived. Additionally, he had subordinates who wanted to kiss up to him. This marriage hadn't been easy for Mu Tianshao to achieve. Who could have predicted that Zheng Jing would find out, even though everything was so secretive? Zheng Jing even reported him to the emperor and to get him impeached. Wasn't he afraid of of offending him. Mu Tianxiao remembered that when he was ordered to renovate Zhongjie Palace, Zheng Jing had taken him under his wing like he had for Prince Jing. He was kind and caring towards him, so Mu Tianxiao had assumed that he was someone who had a discerning eye, but he was actually quite ruthless and stabbed him in the back. Mu Tianxiao wanted to get back at Zheng Jing, but firstly he didn't have anyone to use, and secondly Zheng Jing was an upright person. He was like a sheet of metal. He didn't have any weak spots for Mu Tianxiao to sink his teeth into. Thank goodness, because I was about to start worrying for this poor man. I probably should have been worrying for a while already. But no matter how ruthless Zheng Jing was, the emperor was more so. The decree the emperor issued seemed to preserve a lot of the six princes' dignity, since he wasn't given much of the blame and wasn't beaten. But the subordinates he had worked so hard to get were all gone. Mu Tianxiao hated the emperor, and he hated Zheng Jing even more. But this type of hate was the same as his background, feeble and powerless. He would rather have the emperor beat him a couple dozen times more. Tianxiao, it's just a few people serving you. Mu Tianxiao's mother, Consort Zhang, comforted him gently. Don't feel so bad. Why don't I give you some more maids? Since Mu Tianxiao's status had improved, there were people who had started trying to cling to Consort Zhang, so she had much more confidence when speaking to her son now. But her words also made her words almost made Mu Tianxiao laugh. He couldn't help but tremble slightly. How funny. His mother could wear silver and gold because of him, but she didn't know what he needed the most. Meanwhile, Emperor Xiaohui had been dead for 20 years, but she was still able to protect Prince Jing. The house of Chang'an, Emperor Xiaohui's family, all supported Prince Jing so much. This was the difference between an empress and a palace servant. He's not wrong, but at the same time, I feel like he is really boiling it down to the worst aspects and not considering what Prince Jing and Xiaohui's family and so on had done in order to allow them to be there to protect Prince Jing. Wu Tianxiao never blamed his mother outright, but he told Consort Zhang to be careful what she did. He couldn't let the emperor find any further fault with him. Consort Zhang agreed. With the second and third prince's examples, at most she was just a bit more imposing behind closed doors. In front of the emperor, she was still a well-behaved quail. However, even though Consort Zhang agreed to what Mu Tianxiao mentioned, she didn't think his caution was all that necessary. Right now, who else other than her son could the emperor choose? Well, that's your mistake. Mu Tianxiao had no manpower and couldn't act recklessly. He'd always suspected that there was something going on with Prince Jing's children too, and he doubted Prince Jing's consort. Mu Tianxiao had sent a confidant to the west to investigate, who told him that he had a plan to capture the consort, but there had been no further news. I'm relieved to hear that, because when he knew enough to pretend to kidnap Dabao to draw Leah out, I thought he knew a lot about the kids and had been observing them or something like that, and had sent that news back to Mu Tianxiao. So I'm very glad to hear that's not the case. Mu Tianxiao was afraid that this confidant had disappeared, but he still hoped that he would actually find something to hold over Prince Jing, so he waited every day. But with the start, he realized that he had no time to relax when the emperor was visiting the imperial study and treating the seventh and eighth princes differently. Apart from Prince Jing, the emperor still had two younger sons who could ascend the throne. Wu Tianshao wanted the two youngest princes to lose the emperor's favor somehow, but all of his confidants were gone, and he couldn't find anyone else to help him. Even though the two princes were still young and wouldn't be able to deal with it, he had no way to touch them himself. Just as he was mulling the issue over, someone came to him. "Your Highness, I can help you solve your problems." Jian Ye's misty eyes peeked out from behind the dangling veil of his bamboo hat, unblinking. Jian Ye. I'm not recognizing that name. That's not the guy that was in love with Mu Tianshao, who was given over to Prince Jing by the Sixth Prince, right? Okay, cool, it is him. I thought he was dead. Why did I think he was dead? Um, Mu Tianshao was quite shocked when he saw him. After Prince Jing had left the capital for the western border, the people residing in Qingxi Garden in his manor were each asked individually what they wanted to do. Oh, he was drugged with aphrodisiac, if I'm not remembering. The ones who wanted to leave were allowed to leave. Um, that was when Jianye left Prince Jing's manor. He'd been with Mu Tianshao since he was a child and had nowhere else to go. He went to the Six Princes' manor to find him. Mu Tianshao had let him stay, but at the same time, he'd learned that he was about to get married. So even though Jianye was right in front of him, he didn't get too close to him, and Jianye acted like he didn't exist. The only thing he did was run right up to Mu Tianshao before he was leaving to meet his in-laws to ask Mu Tianshao if he was really getting married. Mu Tianshao had nothing to hide. When he shoved Jianye into Prince Jing's manor, Jianye should have known then that they would never be able to openly be together before the Sixth Prince reached his goals. I am questioning whether even after the Sixth Prince reaches his goal, we are ever going to see something. But I see there's still a lot of this chapter left, and I'm starting to see double a little bit because I'm quite tired. So I think we're going to stop it here. We're at the top of page 271. So we'll pick up from there next week with the full 3 hours. Hopefully, I don't think we're gonna have any more issues with the neighbors. This was a very unexpected, not normal occurrence. So I should be able to see you guys again next Monday, normal time. So 9 p.m. my time, 7 p.m. GMT, if I'm not misremembering. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what you are feeling with regards to all of this. Because the thing is, the closer we get to the end of this, the more I'm wondering, and obviously I also don't want spoilers, so it's kind of just me musing out loud, basically, is when we went into Scum Villain Self-Saving System Volume 3, I thought we were kind of, in the middle of the story, third of a way through, or sorry, 3/4 of a way through, and then we got to the end of Volume 3 and I realized, oh, Volume 4 is literally just the extras. So now I'm kind of wondering if that's the case, but also I don't necessarily know if I want spoilers on whether or not that's the case. So just putting that out there, I am curious about it. Anyway, thank you guys so much for joining me, and I will see you guys again next time. C'est bien.